Happy Sabbath, everyone. Right now, I'll be sharing to you about giving spiritual care. So, once again, I'm your chaplain, Jazel May Diaz. You can call me Chap Jazel. So, what is spiritual care? What do we mean by that? So, it means addressing the spiritual needs of a person. Again, it means we address the spiritual needs of a person. So, spiritual needs and concerns, they usually relate to what we call the big questions of life. So, these questions can include, why is this happening? Why is it happening to me? What does it all mean? How do I make sense of everything? How do I feel about changes in my life? What gives me comfort and hope? What do I call good in my life? What do I call bad? What am I grateful for? What do I trust? And who do I trust? Who is my beloved community who loves me and is loved by me no matter what? What or who beyond myself do I believe is important in my life? So all of these questions, they relate to spiritual needs, concerns, and resources. So all people ask these questions during their lives, especially when they or someone they love are sick or in crisis. So we want to address these spiritual needs of the person, and that is spiritual care. Now, who are those spiritual care providers? So we have pastors, we also have chaplains, we also have home deans if you're living in a dormitory. We also have mentors, especially from the colleges. We also have your matured friends. And of course, it can also be you, the spiritual care provider. Why not? So we have this lecture or this message so that we can also be one of the spiritual care providers. We can help out those people who are lonely, who are experiencing these big questions in their lives. So let's begin. So what is the description of a spiritual care provider? So it is an utmost importance that the spiritual care provider must have considerable awareness of his or her own issues. So for example, for me, before I began working as a chaplain in Adventist Medical Center Manila, we have this training, what we call clinical pastoral education, wherein we first deal with our own issues. Awareness is very important, so we begin to be aware of what's happening to us, uh, what are our issues, and yeah, we need to deal with them first before we can be able to help other people. And so they also have the capacity to connect and journey with his or her own struggles and woundedness so that he or she may qualify to help others who are in their struggles. So no one can help a person struggling with compulsions, obsessions, and addictions like someone who has found his or her own way out of the dark place. So maybe if you had a struggle like that, and then it will be easier for you to help someone who had the same struggles, right? So not only that he or she is compassionate, but he or she must also be holistically competent. So for example, me as a chaplain, I also graduated as AB theology, and not only that, we also had a training in clinical pastoral education in the hospital. So we also need to be competent as spiritual care provider. And having this message can also help you to be somehow competent also as a spiritual care provider. So does the need to personally undergo self-help training and awareness programs. So if there are opportunities for self-help training and awareness programs, grab them. And with that, when you help yourself, you can also help other people. In 1 Corinthians 9:19 and 22, it says, Apostle Paul saying this, "For though I am free from all men, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win the more." So just like the definition or the description of a spiritual care provider, we are a servant to all. Ayan. So that we might win more, the more. So his goal is this one: to the weak I became as weak, that I might win the weak. So yeah, sometimes we deal with the same issue also, so we can help the person with the same issue. So I have become all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. So the goal is to save some, to bring people closer to Jesus or lead them to Jesus, that they may be saved. So characteristics of spiritual care providers. Number one is recognize their own life controlling problem or addiction. So it's very important that the spiritual care provider knows or identify it already in himself. What are those things that are controlling him? Life controlling problem or addiction. And sometimes not just to recognize it, but also to accept it, so that you yourself can deal with it. Number two, make a commitment to personal healing and recovery. It's also very important that the spiritual care provider has that intention and commitment to really go on healing and recovery himself. With that, since he experienced it already, and then it's easier to help other people and to journey with the people who have the same goal of healing and recovery. Another thing is the person must possess a desire to share the journey with others. So the spiritual care provider, they must love to journey with other people. Sometimes it takes time and patience, but it's rewarding at the end. Number four, refrain from problem solving or advice giving. This is one important thing to take note, that spiritual care providers are not there to solve their problems. Because what if you have 10 people that you're giving care, and then you are going to solve all their problems? That's very hard. So we refrain from problem solving and giving advices, but then we just enable them and empower them so that they can solve their own problems. Number five, allow the client to progress at his or her own speed. So sometimes the spiritual care provider wants the progress to be very fast, but then spiritual care providers are really patient people. They try their best to be understanding and yes, be patient with the client as they have their own progress, their own speed of progress. And then work on their personal recovery. So, as a spiritual care provider, you also work on your own personal recovery. You make sure you are also recovering. And then you can talk comfortably and freely about your own problems with openness and honesty. Because as I have said earlier, you have accepted your own problems, and you don't have any fear to share them, because you already accepted them, you're already embracing them, and you're coming to the recovery or healing of your own problems. So those are the characteristics of spiritual care providers. So do you think you have these things? If not yet, then maybe we can work out towards this. Spiritual care conversation. Now, this is very important, spiritual care conversation, because this is the key so that we can be of help to other people. Our conversation. So, in our spiritual care conversation, one thing very important is the word feelings and or emotions. So, feelings are concrete manifestations of the inner struggles the person is dealing with. So sometimes we don't know what the person is struggling with, but then when we know the feelings, when we can hear the feelings from them, then somehow we can learn their struggles, their inner struggles. So these are real expressions of being human. So your most important task right now as a spiritual care provider is to surface the feelings of the patient or client and make the conversation flow in a natural manner. So again, your task is to surface the feelings of the patient or the client and make the conversation flow in a natural manner. So how to surface the feelings of the client? So look at this onion. Interpersonal communication is practiced on so many levels, which can be likened to the layers of an onion. So to get to the area of substance, we must peel back the layer one at a time. So this peeling process can produce tears, yeah, at the end, or with prolonged exposure, it can produce tears, right? So let's begin with the first layer. The first layer is what we call the surface talk, superficial, canned social responses. So sometimes you ask, how are you doing? And then they usually answer, I'm fine. Oftentimes this involves a recognition or acknowledgement. However, it keeps communication on a impersonal level. So you want to be more personal, right? So number two, second layer is sharing descriptive facts. So the what, when, where about ourselves. So when we begin sharing those facts, then we are on the level two. It seems like we're getting close with each other, right? And then on layer number three is when we're sharing our opinions already. So we show where we stand, establishing differences and shared tenets. But our goal is number four. Fourth layer is feelings. So this is the most revealing of self-disclosure, sensitivity, spirituality, care, concern, and commitment. So when a person is telling you already, I feel bad today, or I feel angry too, like this. So that means you already on the fourth layer and you have already met one of your tasks to surface the feelings of the person. And with that, it will be easier for you to help the person. So we need to exercise patience and tolerance with each other as we learn to share on different levels, providing an atmosphere of example, acceptance, and confidentiality. So as we talk to the person, we also need to make them feel that you are a trustworthy person to talk to, especially with their struggles and their secrets. So let them have the atmosphere of confidentiality. Let them know that these things you're talking with each other, you won't share it to other people. This will just be between the two of you. Yeah, so we call that confidentiality. So feelings need to be processed because these are the observable manifestations or tangible expressions of what is going on inside the person. So you really need to know the feelings of the person, and with that, you will help the person to uh, deal with his or her struggles. So finally, when you are able to surface the feelings, the next thing you do is deepen them. Okay, so after deepening, you empower the patient or the client according to his or her concerns. So we call that SDE approach. Surface the feelings and deepen them, meaning you dig down to why do you feel that way? Um, what's the reason behind that anger? What makes you angry? Something like that. So try to deepen them through giving the right questions, and then afterwards empower them. You can ask also reflective questions I'll be sharing later so that you could empower them. But then again, you are not the one to solve their problems, but you let them solve their own problems, and that is called empowering. So on the other hand, when the patient or client shares the feelings openly, so you pick up the feelings, oh, so you mean uh, you are having discontent with this kind of scenario, something like that. So you pick that up, the feelings, and then follow up, and then follow through to journey with the person. So meaning, actually for a spiritual care provider, that means you're good in listening. When we say you journey with the person, that means you are attentively listening to the person and making sure that she felt that or he is being heard, and that someone cares for him so much to listen to what he is going through. And then lastly, as a spiritual care provider, you enable him or her. Enable him or her to do actions to solve his or her problem. Enable him or her in the latter part of the conversation if you perceive the need to do it and the circumstances allow you to do so. So we call that approach PFFE. Pick up the feelings, follow up, follow through, and then enable. So the key words also that you need to remember from this are empower and enable. So with empowering and enabling, you are helping them to deal with their emotions and deal with their struggles or their problems. So, giving spiritual care, the cardinal rule in this ministry is to address first the emotional concerns before the spiritual concerns. So, that's why we're talking about the emotions, the feelings. So, emotions that have not been owned actually and embraced are potent factors to cloud the person's cognitive capacity. So, this judgment will be clouded and change will be impossible. So the thing is, if there are emotions that are not owned, are not embraced, and then it will be hard for the person to really decide very well or make the right decisions because even his judgment, it's clouded. It's full of those emotions that are not being owned and embraced. And so, if you would look into Jesus, Jesus has a lot of emotions that have shown to us. The Bible has rich references where Jesus publicly displayed his emotions. Some of these are as follows. John 11:35, Jesus wept. He also experienced crying, weeping, and in Mark 3, verse 5, and when Jesus had looked around about on them with anger, he even experienced anger because that's emotion, that's part of us human beings. And Jesus said, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful unto death in Mark 14:34. When he is about to die, he is there in the Garden of Gethsemane. And he said, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful unto death. I'm just wondering if what if Peter, James, and John knows how to be a spiritual care provider? Maybe they have helped Jesus during that time when Jesus said to them, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful unto death. But then during that time, Jesus had only God the Father. So he keeps on talking to God the Father. In John 11:33 also it says, when Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews also weeping which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled. For he also experienced that one. This is the time when Lazarus died. And in Isaiah 53 verse 3, Jesus is described as he is despised and rejected of men. He is a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. So with this also, we can see that Jesus is with us. Whenever we experience sorrow, whenever we experience grief, um, we're not alone. God understands us. But it's very beautiful if there's one person, a spiritual care provider, that could be with you, journey with you, help you out with these emotions that you are experiencing. And after all, sadness, pain, and sorrows, they're not wrong. These are not sinful. But how we deliver them determines their sinfulness. So the actions that we do while having these emotions, those are the things that matter, and we want to check on that. So we do not show lack of faith or trust when we respond to life's turmoil with such emotions. For even Jesus responded with emotions. Oh, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. Now, Jesus having that kind of deep sorrow, and anguish and strong emotions of sadness, this what how did he respond? It's like this: he tell it to the father and even surrender to the will of the father. So what's important is that how do we respond with the emotions that we have? Do we respond like Jesus did? That after all this, he just say, "Not as I will, but thou wilt be done." So now here is a list of some feeling words that might be useful in diagnosing the feelings of the client. So maybe as you talk to the person or to the client, there were words that will be coming up. And then when you see these words, you will know, oh, he's open. Oh, he's happy. Oh, he is strong. Oh, he is positive. Oh, he is angry. He is depressed because you have heard these words from them. For example, when you can hear words from him like, I was so disappointed. So that means he is becoming depressed. Yeah. When you hear the word, I feel so miserable, oh, that's a depressed feeling. What else? When he is saying, ah, that's so offensive. That provoked me to do like that. Yeah, I'm so irritated. So that's the feeling of angry. But then when he's saying, I'm so happy, I'm so delightful, uh, I'm so thankful, and that's a happy feeling. And when he's begun saying, understanding, easy, confident, accepting, receptive, interested, satisfied, and that means open or being open. So try to check this out, this list of feeling or words, and it will be helpful for you to understand other people, how do they really feel. So familiarity or maybe mastery of these feelings and being in touch with your own feelings will help you correctly perceive what the patient might feel. But you should also clarify. It's also important to clarify. Did I heard you right? That you feel that way? So that's one way to clarify. Then make your own projection and judgment. The challenge then is how to let the patient share his or her feelings. So it is done by asking appropriate questions to ignite conversation and making it as natural and free-flowing as possible. So what are those questions? I have here two kind of questions. Yeah, we'll learn it later on. So questioning and listening, they are the basic skills that we need as spiritual care providers. So remember, a client there has already enough troubles. So do not make him or her feel more troubled because of your complicated and difficult questions. So sometimes, yeah, I also have some kind of mistake like this, that I have a question and it's so hard to answer. So they had more trouble. So let's avoid that one. So you are there to minister to the client, not to process him and add to the crisis. So avoid asking complex questions like why, because it is difficult and possibly may add stress to the already stressed client. So there are two major classifications of questions that will encourage the person to share their feelings. That is open-ended questions and reflective questions. So let me give you examples. So an open-ended question is designed to encourage a full, meaningful answer using the subject's own knowledge and or feelings. It is the opposite of a closed-ended question, which encourages a short or a single word answer. So meaning when you ask these questions, you will hear more from them. They will be encouraged to answer a lot of words, not just one word. So for example, what does it feel like to be something like that? Yeah. So can you tell me more about your experience? Yeah, you can say that. How are you feeling right now? Would you like to talk about such and such? Where would you like to begin? That's a good question. How is it? How is that blank for you? How do you feel now about, yeah. So can you tell me what that means to you? You can ask that question if he is telling something, and then can you tell me what that means to you? How would you like things to be? Now when you're coming to the end, you can ask this question, how would you like things to be? What do you imagine? What have you thought of? How do you see things changing? What should it be like? So, what would you like to do about it? This is a very important question towards the end. When you are about to empower, enable them, what would you like to do about it? I'm wondering, yeah, so this means you're quite suggesting something to them. And then what can you think of? Yeah, like that. So those are some of the open-ended question. And yes, you can review this one. You can try to memorize them too. So whenever you need to use them, then instantly it can come up to you and you can use them. So in a similar way, reflective questions, which are the types of questions the patient might usually ask himself, depends on the stage they are reflecting. So the examples are, what was the incident or situation which you found yourself like that? So how did you feel about it? What other facts or issues do you feel were relevant to the situation? What else is useful to note about yourself this time? So yeah, this is very reflective, trying to see what can they learn about their situation, and then what choices did you make at the time? How appropriate or inappropriate are the, yeah, like that. So do you know? Do you now feel these decisions were? And then what alternative courses of action may have been possible? So, what implications does this incident or situation have for your future? This is very reflective. So, that is in finding yourself in a similar situation in the future. What would you do the same? And what would you do differently? What will succeed if, like this, like that, looks like, how will you do it? What help do you need if, sounds like, seems as if now this clarifying statements, I hear you saying, I wonder if, I get a sense that, so you're trying to clarify. I think I hear, I feel that, it feels as though, sounds to me like, yeah. So am I right in thinking that? So when you say these things, you are not just clarifying, but you are allowing them to reflect on what they have said. You seem to be, so you're feeling, so it's, okay, so those are the examples of reflective questions. And yes, try to be familiar with this, and maybe someday or one day you will use them as you talk to a person, as you help the person to deal with their problems. So everyone should be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to become angry. James 1:19. So every spiritual care provider needs this one, that they would always want to listen to the person and they are very quick to listen, meaning listen attentively and listen even to the feelings or to the words that they are saying, that they can understand what they're saying, and then slow to speak. So sometimes you would just give questions, not really saying more than the questions, and then slow to become angry, meaning you are being patient actually to the client or to the person you're talking or you're helping to. And in the end, when we are helping other people to go through their problems in life, Matthew 25:35 to 40, it says, For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. This is Jesus telling them. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? Maybe in your life you have encountered people who have needs and you help them out. And nowadays, it's very rampant that people have needs, spiritual needs, and emotional needs. Someone to talk to, someone who would listen to them, someone who would bring them out of their depression or their loneliness. And if that is you, if you are that person, a spiritual care provider who helped them out, then the king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Jesus will tell you, truly I tell, whatever you did for this person, for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me. So as spiritual care providers, when you do this to a person, you journey with him, you help him out through his situation or problem, you address his spiritual needs, and then you also did that to Jesus. I hope and pray that all of you will be encouraged to be one of the spiritual care providers. God bless you.